we had discussed the Rings of Power a little bit. Now, I know you're not a pop culture man as such, but like I'm assuming this is something that you're kind of into. So
yeah, well, I mean, you can't deny the political dimension of what's happening to Lord of the Rings right now, right? It's like, what the hell is going on? Why is this constantly happening? And I was thinking about this because, like, there are very few properties that you could say are resistant to sort of left-wing infiltration, right? But Lord of the Rings, I think, is one of those things because it's like, I don't know, it's got this kind of intrinsic right-wing theme to it. And I was thinking, okay, like, so the leftists are constantly trying to like subvert and undermine and be like, okay, we're going to replace these characters, we're going to change these stories, and essentially we're going to liquidate what the thing is. And the reason, I mean, and I'm not like, I don't normally care about like left or right or something like that, you know, and there's loads of stuff that I enjoy, but it's just one of those things where it's becoming so overt. I found myself having to think about it, right? And so I was just like, okay, so what is it that makes something right wing? And there was this Czech president who used to arbitrarily declare that things were left or right wing, and everyone in his country was just like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" So they'd be like, "Skiing, oh, that's left wing," you know, like, whereas mowing the lawn, that's right wing, you know. And it's just like, what? Right, and so, but the thing is, he had a logic behind it. If you look at the things, because what he's defining as like right wing and left wing is things that uphold order and things that like expand categories and things that like make things more inclusive. And so, like by this metric, Lord of the Rings is a deeply right wing property, because the entire point of the Fellowship of the Ring is to try and uphold the proper ordering of the world so Sauron doesn't come and conquer it and, you know, diversify Gondor and whatnot with his orcs of peace. So it's like you can see
that's a fucking way to view it. You're supposed to destroy it all.
Yeah, I think Sauron represents a totalitarian, like, you know, monoculture in that orcs would be literally the only dominant species on the planet.
No,
Sauron.
Think. I mean, Sauron's hordes are very diverse. You know, he's got lots of different kinds of orcs, and
we're like the Fellowship.
He's got the Southrons, hasn't he? The
Easterlings.
Yeah,
Easterlings. Yeah,
the Easterlings. Yeah, that's it. And just different kinds of orcs, and you know, he's got Saruman and all these. You know, he's brought together quite a big coalition. But the point is, he's not happy that the Gondorians and the Rohirrim and all this are just like living their lives, and they have their thing with defined boundaries. This is where we live, this is how we do things, and we've got a particular sort of way of life here. And he's like, no, I'm conquering all of this. And the whole point of the Fellowship is basically to be able to take his ability away from and destroy this corrosive. And Sauron, throughout the whole of the Lord of the Rings mythos, has been a subversive character. The thing that makes Lord of the Rings right wing is there's a positive assertion of how things should be. There's a particular order here that the Fellowship is trying to uphold. And the only other piece of media I can think of that's similarly like intrinsically right wing like that is Warhammer, you know, and 40k. And I'm becoming a little bit obsessed with it because it's like, oh my God, like I can see why they forced Games Workshop to disavow the Space Marines, because the Space Marines are like the pinnacle of order. You know, the whole point of the universe is that the forces of chaos and evil and all that, they're going to tear apart everything that mankind has built up. And so like that's the entire purpose of the Space Marine faction, is to defend those boundaries and borders and those things. And so I can see why, like, these are like the last outposts of decent pop culture at this point. You know, it feels like on every front, like everything else is just fucking collapsing. There's nothing else. I mean, what's good now? Like, what do you guys, in the last 5 years, what have you guys watched and you're like, yeah, that's fucking brilliant.
But yeah, like
nothing out of the West though, right?
No, we're not like, and this is what I was saying just literally before you came on, is like our generation is going to be remembered as the generation that produced nothing good that contributed to human development.
Yeah.
We have not produced good culture that's going to be remembered down the decades. And I think that's just, it speaks to where we're at as a culture.
It's gross, isn't it?
Well, we're not capable of creativity at the moment, in the normal sense, in the sense that previous generations were able to do it, because we're so constrained by like rules.
It's just the people who are in charge now have a war against creativity and excellence. That's the thing.
Yep. Excellence is a great
term
too.
Well,
Given a few hundred
they've got a war
years-
against meritocracy and the idea that, like, well, whoever's going to rise to the top is just who's best for it. And it's like, no, we have to define the demographics of who's best for rising to the top.
That sounds bigoted.
And Sargon talks about the Space Marines from Warhammer, right? Do you think the Imperium of Man in Warhammer is concerned with having the most diverse Imperial Guard that they
Yes.
can?
Absolutely not.
They want to make sure that women get the best shot that they can in the Imperial Guard. No, they don't. They want the most disposable meat bags that they can throw into the fucking fray.
Mhm.
It's a horrifying meat grinder of a society, but that's what they have to be in order to survive in that climate.
And the thing is, if you look at it, like, the forces of chaos are very, very similarly mapped to the left as well. The sort of like social justice.
Fucking come
types.
on.
Dude, do you no? Hey,
Sargon's
okay.
making
Who's
sense to me.
Nurgle?
Do that
Who's
right
Nurgle?
by.
Nurgle is the fat pride movement, and there's a strain
Oh
of social
shit,
justice.
you're right.
But no.
I told you he was fucking making sense.
A year and a half
You're
ago or
right.
so, right? I'm not even making this up, right? California decriminalized giving people AIDS.
Oh yeah,
What?
yeah. You can
Yeah.
like have sex with somebody and like not have to tell them.
You don't
Yeah.
have to tell them. I got to double check to make sure that passed. I know they were pushing it through at the time, and it's the same San Francisco politician who wanted to. He wants to normalize other dastardly things.
Oh, sorry, it was in 2017. I'll put a link in the thing. I just googled it. I thought it was only a year ago, right? California lowers penalty for knowingly exposing partners to HIV, right? So this has gone from being a felony to being a misdemeanor, I believe it is.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah,
like-
someone in chat's saying that as well.
yeah. So it's just like, okay, how is that not a Nurgle policy? Right? That's exactly what Nurgle would do.
That's somewhere
right?
between Nurgle and Slanesh, isn't it?
It is, yeah, right. But okay, so you've got Khorne, and it's Khorne is a religion of peace. Okay, it's just purely about blowing stuff up and killing people, right? So that's one thing, right? You've got Nurgle, then you've
Mostly
got
peaceful corn protests.
mostly peaceful Khorne protests, right? Then you've got Slanesh, which is of course the LGBT lobby, right? You've seen the Pride parades. We don't need to say any more on that. Then you've got Zench, which is all about intellectualism and subversion. So Zench is academia. And it's just like, fuck, man. And all of these things are attacking the Imperium for not being inclusive enough of their perversions or, infiltrations or whatever it is. Like it's very, very left and right wing if you look at it like that. And it's like, fucking hell, it maps on really closely. And like Games Workshop were like, oh, we disavow the Imperium's hate. And it's like, right, so you've got Khorne berserkers literally chopping off heads for fun and for the worship of their god, but you didn't disavow them. You've got the Slaneshis perverting, literally like turning everyone into sex slaves, didn't disavow them. Got Nurgle literally spreading disease, didn't disavow that. And you've got Zench, which is literally about lying to everyone to make them ruin their lives, didn't disavow that. But you disavow the Space Marines. That's really interesting, isn't it?
it's really important to respect people's cultures.
Well, exactly. That's exactly it. That's literally the latest Zench fucking advertising campaign. We need to respect our culture. But it's just mad how, like, so I found this thing, right? Literally in 1986 in one of the manuals, right? And this is a quote from a Games Workshop manual. Quote, "Since Slanesh is neither male nor female, but a hermaphrodite, the members of the Jade Scepter have invented a new personal pronoun, Shem. Thus they avoid the use of the more cumbersome he or she and him or her without recourse to the impersonal it. Shem is used for both subject and object, while Shems replaces the possessive pronoun with his or her, from his or her. With similar obsessiveness, the cultists are always careful to use the neutral word deity instead of god or goddess."
That's why
Literally,
I think
Slanesh-
They saw this coming. What was this from
Slanesh has a
1986?
personal fucking pronoun. 1986.
Damn.
How is this not the forces of fucking chaos? Well, I'm just
But we
saying.
don't have any of the cool stuff like power armor or like warp travel or anything. We've
I
got all
know.
the shit parts of the Imperium, but not the good stuff.
Yeah, we've
How
got
do
all the
we
chaos
fight?
parts. Yeah,
Yeah, damn.
but isn't that just mad though? Like how like all the internal logic of it is basically the identical logic of these factions. But anyway,
Yeah, but the Chaos Gods, they represent all the negative aspects of the human psyche, don't they? Like greed, lust, like sexual
Yep.
perversion, you
Yep.
know, gluttony, all that stuff. Like
It's
they
very
are just
progressive.
they are the manifestations of the negative human psyche. And wow, look what we have now.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's mad, isn't it?
what can I say?
And the SJWs are
how did
beating
we
on
end up
Games
in this
Workshop's door.
timeline?
I mean, what was the? Let me Warhammer's for everyone. That was the little thing they put out, right? Let me read this out.
I hate when that happens, when something's taken over and the first thing you hear it's for everyone, as if it wasn't before.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and it's just definitionally not for everyone. Like, there's no way I'm going to get my nan to play Warhammer. You know,
What?
well, you know, like your grandparents, they're like, oh, I don't really want to play Warhammer. It's like, no, it's for everyone. Get in this game now. You know, like it's not for everyone. It's for people who like it. You know.
Yeah, like
But listen to this. This is amazing, right? Warhammer is for everyone. One of the great powers of our hobby is its ability to bring people together in common cause, to build bonds and friendships that cross divides. We believe in and support a community united by shared values of mutual kindness and respect. Our fantasy settings are grim and dark, but that's not a reflection of who we are or how we feel the real world should be. We will never accept nor condone any form of prejudice, hatred, or abuse in our company or in the Warhammer hobby. We will continue to diversify the cast of characters we portray through miniatures, art, and storytelling, so everyone can find a representation and heroes they can relate to. And if you feel the same way, wherever and whoever you are, we're glad you're a part of the Warhammer community, and if not, you will not be missed. Right? Warhammer
they
is for
had us
everyone.
in-
Get the fuck out.
they should have said, like, if you're willing to accept this universe that we've created for what it is and just enjoy it, brilliant, you'll be welcomed here. If not, maybe you should look somewhere else.
You know, the second someone starts going, we have to take down the capitalist system and you have to be for Black Lives Matter and Trans Lives Matter. And I'm like, bro, I just paint Gundam model kids. Get the fuck out of here with this.
I just want to see flamers go.
Yeah.
But that's all I want, you know.
But I love the idea that we're going to diversify and make sure everyone's represented. Well, I mean, the people who are complaining already are represented, so you should have just pointed that out, right? But the thing is, that was only the first defense that they made against social justice. Oh no, we're pro social justice, right? Then they had to come out with another one, right, saying the Imperium is driven by hate, Warhammer is not.
Okay.
The Imperium of Man. And this is like 2/3 of all of their sales are Space Marines as well, right? So like they've got like 20 factions or something, and like 2/3 of all of the sales are this one faction. And they're like, yeah, so we disavow that faction. Well, what? You're disavowing like your bread maker, you know, the breadwinner in your entire game. You're saying, yeah, we disavow this, right? So they say there are no goodies in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, none, especially not the Imperium of Man. Bitch, you've got cultists whose entire religion is chopping off heads. And you're like, yeah, but the Imperium, man, bad.
I think with the Imperium, man, like it's become what it needs to be in order to survive, but it's never portrayed really as a good thing. Like I think it's not.
Yeah.
It's never meant to be a good thing, but it's a necessary thing for the survival of the human race in terms of what they're facing.
And it's like a space theocracy, like in a Roman Empire in space, right? And it's a very obvious based on the aesthetics that that's what they're modeling off. And that's fine because it's fucking awesome. You know, it looks great. Keep going, you know. But let me keep reading this out. You like just think whose perspective in the Warhammer universe on the Imperium of Man are they speaking from, right? They say, its numberless legions of soldiers and zealots bludgeon their way across the galaxy, delivering death to anyone and anything that doesn't adhere to their blinkered view of purity. Almost every man and woman toils in misery, either on the battlefield where human survival is measured in hours, or in the countless manufactorums and the hive slums that fuel the imperial war machine. All of this in slavish servitude to the living corpse of a god emperor whose commandments are at best only half remembered, twisted by time and the fallibility of humanity. Death to the false fucking emperor, says Games Workshop. That's the chaos narrative? Like, why would they do that? Like, who are they appeasing with this? Like, they're literally taking the perspective of the villains, the evil dark gods, and then criticizing the Imperium of Man, their primary sales pitch, and, like, publicly disavowing them? It's like, this is mad. Why are you politicizing like the internal logic of your fantasy world? You know?
I guess what they were going for is to try and make it as grim and awful as possible because that's the kind of universe that it's meant to be. And yeah, I think they've probably taken it too far with something like this, but their intent was to say like, This is a future of endless war where humans are just fed into an uncaring meat grinder to keep the Imperium going. And it's not a good place. It's not something to really aspire to, but that's what humanity has devolved into in order to just stay functional, in order to stay alive.
I mean, it's necessary though, isn't it? Because everything in the universe just wants to eat or destroy or corrupt the entire human race. And they're explicit about it,
Pretty much, yeah. And if you're an average Imperial citizen in the 40k universe, you're in for a shit time. Not gonna lie.
But it'll be even worse if the aliens get you.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to get possessed by a demon or whatever. That's a bad day out for anyone, really.
But like you were saying, it's a necessary thing for humanity to have done, right? So it puts the Imperium of Man as the most moral faction in a universe of utterly immoral factions, because all of the other factions lust for the idea of eating people. They literally want to just consume them or, give them diseases or murder them or whatever. And the Imperium are like, right, to make sure they don't do all of these terrible things to us, we're going to have to create super soldiers that will just have to go out and die forever to prevent these aliens from getting us. But the point is, you don't have a choice. You can't coexist with the orcs. You can't have a pet tyrannid. You can't, bring a demon in and engage in some Slaneshi cultism on the weekend. There's no moderation here.
Yeah,
No,
all of
you
this
can't.
stuff is very
maybe
much...
I can't, yeah.
Yeah, all of this stuff is spawned from when Games Workshop was first founded, which was back in the 1980s, when it was very much gung-ho, action-oriented. We're here to create a dark, grim future where it's only war, exactly like they talk about. But you can't start to change this universe and this lore that's been built up over decades to suit modern sensibilities. It's grim, it's horrible, it's violent, it's aggressive. That's exactly what it needs to be. That's the setup for it. You can't just make that compatible with your softly approach to modern life.
And that's what makes it interesting and fun, the fact that it's so extreme and everything is just trying to kill you all the time. It makes it very interesting. And it's just really weird watching them being like, yeah, but could we have some diversity and inclusion? It's like, no.
Exactly. If you're in a situation like that where you're fighting for the survival of your species, diversity and inclusion is going to be the last thing on your mind, literally the last thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Balrogs are fiery but mostly peaceful. I think we can all agree with that.
Exactly.
I would think diversity and inclusion is already in the mix if they're just throwing bodies. They're not going to sit there and go, well, we can't have that guy over there, Daniel, here because he's wearing a dress and panties.
Probably with the Imperial Guard, it's well, you're all equally good bullet magnets, so you just guys go out there, do your best. I compare it to the Disney-fied version of it, where it's a movie like Shang-Chi, where people beat the shit out of each other. Nobody draws a drop of blood. Nobody gets teeth knocked out. Nobody even gets their hair messed up. They're just punching each other over and over again, doing a bunch of generic kung fu moves, and it's so boring to watch because there's no stakes.
That movie broke down barriers of color.
It was a triumph, Gundam. It was a triumph.
Absolute triumph.
It didn't, right? I actually looked into this. The director and the showrunners were very insistent on making sure that everyone on there was ethnically Chinese because it was set in China, right? And I don't object to that at all. That makes perfect sense. But they don't do that with anything else, do they? And so the director was saying, no, we're definitely going to have a Chinese guy here. This is going to be Asian representation, blah, blah, blah. It's yeah. So that a Chinese character should be played by someone from China because otherwise it doesn't make sense. So tell me about the Black Dwarf, tell me about the Black Elf. How does that make
magical
sense?
Creature, Sargon.
Yeah, exactly. Magical Northern European folklore. That's definitely someone from Africa.
With the haircut.
Oh, fucking hell, yeah.
Yeah.
He's got waves.
Yeah, he doesn't even have dreadlocks or anything. It's it's just short back and sides.
Yeah.
Straight off the fucking
Buzz
barber
cut.
on the high street.
I mean, I'm listening to an audiobook of Lord of the Rings at the moment, actually, just because it's come up and I'm so, okay, it's been, years since I've read it. I was a teenager since I read it. And the elves, they're very obviously magical. They've got long magical hair and the hair is important. There's a sort of mythological element to it. And that is just totally ignored and they don't give a fuck. And it's okay. All right, just fuck off. You guys hate whatever it is you're dealing with. It comes from hatred. It comes from a contempt from the property that you're working with. And the thing is, I think in their minds, I think they're excessively online people, and I think that a lot of them are thinking, yeah, those fucking bigot, racist, white supremacists, fuck them. I think a lot of it's that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah.
Eric Larson, who was the editor, I think he still is the editor-in-chief of Image Comics, came out on Twitter yesterday and said, just make the Punisher gay. That will own the right. Totally own the right by making the Punisher gay.
Dude, that's the height of writing these days. Make them gay. I don't know. That'll do it.
It's not a commitment to the story in any way, shape, or form. It's about political activism.
It's activism. That's all it is, and that's the people that they hire now, and that's the people that infiltrate fucking everything in Hollywood. I don't know how they managed to do it, but they have gotten themselves in there, and they are like a cancer within that industry.
This is why the 40k stuff has been so much on my mind recently, because it occurs to me that they view 40k and Lord of the Rings as right-wing activism. Like, I don't think they can see it as anything else, even though it's not. It's a fucking fantasy game, A normal person just play, oh, that's fun, that's a cool faction, or I like Gandalf, or I like Aragorn, or whatever. Like, they don't think of it as political, but these people see everything as fucking political. And as soon as you start seeing everything as political, you're like looking at the Space Marines going, oh my god, these are right-wing Nazis. We have to get these diversified and inclusive and liquidate the faction. It's about the breaking down of these boundaries. And so standards are lowered so that it's inclusive to everyone, even Slaneshi cultists. It's like, for fuck's sake. They do this on purpose, and they know that they're doing it on purpose.
Well, I think it's like the old saying, when all you've got is a hammer, pretty soon everything looks like a fucking nail.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they see. Every fandom, every subculture, every hobby has to be this thing that has to be hammered down and made to conform to exactly what they want it to be. And this is why I say fucking gatekeeping is good.
Yep.
The moment someone comes in who wants to make these changes, who wants to try and enforce this shit on you, just say, no fucking way, sir, fuck off. We're not here for you. I think this is the problem that we have. It's like, not only do we not produce anything new and good, but we take the things that were good in the past and subvert them and fuck them up so that they become acceptable now.
And you notice there's only one standard now, right? Like, did you guys see that Amazon Lord of the Rings superfan thing?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Sargon, because we talked about that.
Yeah, you saw it, right? And so you see the people, and you listen to the things they're talking about, and it's like, what the fuck am I supposed to take from this other than they're very happy that there are black people in it? Like, that's the standard. I see myself, I'm represented. It's like, no, you're some fucking pleb, that's an elf. But you're not one of them. You're not even vague. I don't look at you and think, oh, elf. I think, oh, fucking Generation Z loser. Like, Jesus Christ, stop fucking talking is what I think. I don't think high elf or dwarf or anything like that. I think fucking insufferable prick. And so it's just like, you're not represented. But the thing is, these people are just such racists. All they can see is the skin color.
Yeah, I totally understand the desire to give minorities better representation in movies, because in the past, like in previous decades, it's not always happened, and it's sometimes been prejudice against them, and they've sometimes been stereotyped and stuff. Totally get that, and that was shit. They deserve a better chance now. But there are certain situations where you just can't make it work. Like, for example, we in the UK had a Channel 4 show about Anne Boleyn, one of the wives of Henry VIII.
We have historic paintings from the time, so we know exactly what she looks like.
Yeah, and she was played by a black woman in this show. Ridiculous, completely historically inaccurate, but they did it anyway. And that would be an example of that just doesn't work, because you're going against historical, verified facts.
Well, sometimes history is bigoted.
Well, that's the point, isn't it?
This is it. And you can take history and say, well, maybe medieval England was a very ethnically homogenous culture. It was.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing, but that's just the way it was. And if you're going to represent it, you have to be accurate about it.
I would say that's neither good nor bad, right? It's not a moral judgment.
Exactly, it's just reality.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the way things are. It's not good or bad. It's not designed, you know.
And it's the same with Tolkien, where he said, like, okay, if we're going to have this race of elves, they are explicitly described as fair-skinned. They generally have blonde hair, sometimes like raven-colored.
Yeah.
But that is how they are described. That's how they That's how he envisioned them. That's what they are within this context. You should honor that. It's not up to you to go saying, well, we need to have more diverse elves or dwarves or whatever, because it fits with the modern representation of what we want in our culture. That's irrelevant. That's not what he wrote. That's not the world that he created. That's the world that you are working in. You might not like it, but there it fucking is, my son. That's what it is.
Representation to be something almost childish now. You know, like with little kids, when you see them watching a show and a character on the show looks like them and they scream, "That's me!"
I mean, it is exactly childish.
like, well,
it's not just that as well, because it's the moral sentiments of the character, right? Because like I really enjoyed Blade. I like never read the cartoon, the comic or anything, but I really enjoyed the film of Blade, and I liked Blade's character, right? And because the thing is, because they're sort of like stoic characters, there's not normally something to it, but Blade had something to it, and I enjoyed the character. And like, you know, there are loads of like, you know, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I used to fucking love Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when I was like 13. I was never thinking, oh, they're black. I was thinking, oh, Carlton's such a cad or a card. You know, Will Smith is so amusing. Uncle Phil, ooh, he's going to whip his ass now. You know, they're characters. So they're human qualities that they exhibit that are universal human qualities. You know, in all times and all places and all cultures, humans are, you know, selfish, greedy, or generous and loving and kind. And so it doesn't matter what the person looks like. It matters how they behave. That's what I relate to in the character.
And imagine just like blankly saying, like, yeah, a lot of my friends liked French Prince of Bel-Air. I just couldn't get into it. It's just mainly black people.
yeah.
You're like, excuse me?
Can you even imagine, though? But that's literally what this Amazon fucking superfans, they were like, yeah, I couldn't get into Lord of the Rings because they were all white. And it's like, sorry, you're just a racist.